Hi, everyone. I'm coming on for the lunar eclipse, and I want to speak a little bit on some of the work that I've done regarding my family lineage. As many of you know, as soon as you start stepping onto the path of healing, awakening, yada, yada, you have to do the work of healing the family lineage. And a lot of people in my family have been doing this work. There's different bloodlines that are, let's say there's more work that needs to be done than others. Um, but, every family line has its history. And as soon as we start kind of tapping into these unseen realms, we start picking up on all sorts of pertinent information to the bloodline. And we're able to decode that information by doing research and finding out about, basically what those visions that we're having are connected to. And sometimes they're directly related to an event, an ancestor that had that experience. And sometimes it comes in, it's more like metaphorical. Either way, we have to transcend all of that stuff in order to regain the gifts, heal the wounds and move forward. And so a big part of the work that I had to do with one stream within my family line, I was able to track all the way back, find that information within the mythological stories in the North mythologies, connecting to the Prozetta and the name Wall, which is Val, which is Vala, spelt Walla. And Vala was the prophetess who lived in the underworld, basically in hell, which is connected to the realms of healing. When we go into the dark night of the soul, we're going into hell, and we're going there to going into purgatory and basically recapitulating everything that's happened within our lives. And when we experience, any adversity in life that sparks triggers and that brings back memories, we're going into those realms. And this can be, when you're tracking this work for yourself, you will see it, like if you use any tool, or any type of research that you're doing, whether it's numerology or you're using astrology, or you're just going in through, basic psychology, or if you're looking at it, through your visions and connecting, you're going to find everything sort of ties in. And that is the process of ascension. Like when we talk about ascension, we're talking about going within, right, in order to transcend all these layers of illusion and these masks that have been that we've been, seeing the world through and seeing ourselves through. And so I was able to make a lot of connections related to, like, confirmations, basically related to the information that was surfacing for me. And everyone in my family, I'm not going to specify which side of the family. If you're part of the family, you'll know. But everyone part of that lineage has some form of psychic ability, you know, prophetic dreams, just, feeling energy in a different way than most people, and being able to, foresee things and just kind of know things, right? Either seeing into other people or just being hypersensitive to the environment and hyper aware, right? About kind of these unseen forces at play. And so a lot of people in my family within that stream have been like really working hard to transcend some of this stuff, because it's really heavy duty. It's a heavy duty energy to work with, right? When we're talking about, um, going into the underworld. And so it's been a really interesting path, and I feel like things have come full circle. And I know that some of you within the family do know that there was a type of curse that was put on the family. And that actually was a curse that enhanced our abilities, but it was also the way that it enhanced our abilities was that it made us literally feel everything. So not only picking up like visually on things and what's going on and having just being able to see things and see things coming, especially when it comes to protection, right? And protecting, and that's the name wall, right? Is all about that protection energy, right? So that protection energy can get really raw and very everything about security and survival, and triggering a lot of like deep primal emotions. And those gifts actually came from the family curse. Now, I don't know where, I'm assuming that somewhere along the way, um, our ancestors were confronted, like speaking to my family, our ancestors were confronted with different factions in the world that didn't want those gifts to grow and proliferate, right? And actually do good for humanity. They wanted to keep them to be used for their ends. And, this is something super common, like, everything in the world that is beautiful, like all the gifts that people have are basically being exploited, right? By those that understand what they are. Because anytime, if you don't understand what you have as a gift, right? Then it's really easy to exploit that, right? It's really easy to exploit the innocence of a child. It's really easy to, like, cowards do this, but this is basically how society's run, is, trying to control people before they know their own power. And so a lot of people in my family are really working hard because there's like so much against us, and feeling everything that we're picking up on really made it difficult to move forward with a lot of these gifts. Because if you're feeling what you're seeing and, what you're able to sense and pick up, if you're actually feeling it viscerally, you can go through all these different states. And now I'm putting out this video, I could easily just send this to the family line that I know is, involved with this type of energy and have dealt with this. But I do know other people who I've interacted with on this channel who experience this similarly. And, if they do the research and they track back and, they do the research on their family name and some of the things that their ancestors were involved with or came up against, they might find the explanation there. But for me, it's very specific to healing, to the underworld, and to foreseeing and foretelling events. And so when I came into this awareness, I already knew, since a child, everyone in that stream in my family knows, we know this about each other. It's just proven itself radically over the years. But when I came into really like the awareness of how it gets hijacked, that was like a big eye opening. And also the awareness of like that kind of curse that was imposed upon us, where we had to feel what it was we were sensing. So if we're picking up on something, negative that was happening, like it wasn't just like clairvoyance, right? Or clairaudience. It was claircognizance. It was like clairsentience. It was like, you have to feel through the whole event, right? And interacting with different people. It's like, they're saying one thing, you're feeling something completely else. And then you get gaslit, right? People tell you, well, everything's within your own mind and everything's just a projection and it's all an illusion. When in reality, we're an interconnected web of life, and we are constantly, all producing, we're all co-creating this reality. And so you do sense other people, especially if you're highly attuned. You're going to be picking up on their emotions and their thoughts. And so a lot of learning, the big learning curve with some of these gifts is really just the heart, right? And coming into forgiveness and understanding that everybody has their light and dark and everybody has their shadow, right? And I'm not forgiving like the real dark, right? The people that are completely psychopathic and sociopathic, we're going to put them in another category. But people who just in general, are moving through their own lessons in life and trying to better themselves, right? That's the key. Like, are people that you're interacting with trying to better themselves? And the majority of people are just, hurt people hurting people and then overcoming. And so a lot of people are overcoming, right? And as long as we can stay in the heart, which is extremely challenging when we're faced with really darker energies and things happening in the world that are not coming from a place of like, humanity, like that human essence. It's coming from just that cold psychopathic energy where people don't care about other people, like they've just gone completely beyond, and they're not able to relate, and feel their environment anymore and feel the people around them. When you're interacting as a feeler, as someone who has clairsentience, and you're interacting with that energy, it is really, really um like challenging isn't even a good word. Like it is, it's it's kind of like this soul crushing energy, right? It's soul crushing because you're coming in with with this heart energy, with this, human energy, and then you come up against something that is just so cold and doesn't have that. And there's no way for you to understand what that energy is because that's not who you are, right? And we often can only understand that which we are connected to and that which we are really a part of. um, Anything outside of that, we have to learn about. And learning about, some of the darkness in the world was extremely challenging because there's no coming to there's no negotiating, right, with certain people in the world. Like once they've crossed that line and they've lost that connection to soul, there's no communicating with them. Like there's no soul to soul communication. So, we have this conversation here where we're talking and you could talk to people, but then we're also having like that soul connection, right? Where we're picking up on all that other information. And when that conversation doesn't happen, like it is the worst. It's just the worst feeling in the world to interact with, with these different factions. And so part of overcoming that was really, really healing like the auric field and developing really strong boundaries with people and like healing the self, right? So there's no tears or rips in the auric field and really orienting the mind towards like, focusing on the right things. Because if you're focusing on the psychopaths, they're just going to drain you, right? Or the sociopaths, even, there's a lesser degree, but it's still going to drain you. And so if you're focused on, healing and connecting with nature, connecting with people who can give you, can, reciprocate that soul energy, like it is super, super healing to have that. And so overcoming that, I know that my family line, like I've just been watching this thing go since, because the energy is just the whole world is basically healing. Like we're all healing all the time. And if you're not on that path, then you're just, part of the corruption and you're just trying to take advantage, right? And harness the soul energy in this world. But if you're someone with soul, then, everyone, majority of the population are just constantly moving towards, betterment, improvement, self-reflection and doing inner work, um, And then there's a huge portion of the population that isn't so much aware, right? They're just kind of going on autopilot, but that are still making largely, good decisions day to day because they're just based in, um, they have soul and they might not be awakened to like the details and the nuances of all these unseen forces, but you know, they're good people, right? So that's also a big part of the population. But everybody else who has been doing this work has seen like dramatic improvements, right? And yeah, it's slow, it's incremental, right? If you've come in to heal a specific family line, like if that's part of your soul path, it's not going to be, you're not just going to like wake up one day and that's gone. That's always there. You're always, it's part of your life path. Doesn't mean you're a victim your whole life. It doesn't mean that you're, someone who, has to be kind of in that energy all the time, but you might just naturally be a healer, right? Because that's what you've been focused on your whole life. And so that becomes like the soul's path, right? So so overcoming, I don't know, I've called it a family curse, but I think it's really just like perspective, right? As well, it's like clairsentience is not, it's a difficult one to deal with because you're feeling it, right? Like if you take someone else who's just clairvoyant and they're seeing all these things, whether they be bad or they be good, and they're able to move through life more freely because it doesn't actually, like, they don't have to feel it in their body. They might see it and that image might traumatize them, but they don't have to feel it, right? They don't have to feel it inside their body. And so when you're feeling things inside your body, like you have to have a whole different practice, like I said, really connected to nature, connecting, surrounding yourself with animals, basically, being as close to the elements as possible in order to allow transmutation to happen. So a lot of the alchemical work that I do, is really just transmuting energy. And I think that's part of the clairsentience and the feeling and having to deal with that is part of the path is becoming, someone who can transform energy and transmute energy. And um, and so that needs to be, that awareness needs to be there, and then the focus away from trying to fight what you're feeling, right? Because often if you're picking up something, right, and you have this energy where the prophetess was someone who would be consulted, right, kind of similar to an oracle, really, and then they just more receptive with energy. And I do have men within the family who have this, right? And I think it's even more challenging for the men who have to have that clairsentience and be really 1 foot in each realm. Um, it could be, yeah, their suffering, I think, could be even greater. Like, and that's like, I find it's already like really difficult to transmute the energy sometimes. But you even have a masculine who, just by nature, they deal with pain and suffering in a different way. Um, Having to deal with all that feminine energy, right? Because being in the underworld is very, it's tapped into that feminine energy within the self that, can read the signs, can read the energetic imprints and can feel them. So hopefully, I'm not directly connected to everybody in the family who has these gifts. Everyone's kind of been really, doing their work on their own path, and but I know of them, and it's even, I think, more challenging when you're a male. So if you're a male watching this and you have this energy, because I do have other friends and clients who experience this, and you have to feel through everything. I salute you to continuing to just do the work in order to prepare, right, the body so that these impacts aren't as difficult. Really maintaining healthy space and healthy boundaries with people. Like, you cannot have just anybody accessing you, right? Because as soon as people come in, you're going to feel all of that. And I found that there's two routes. There's either we overload ourselves, um, or we're just really careful about who we're letting in. And when you overload, there's this kind of tipping point where it's like you become part of everything, and it's not so much, we're not in the feeling body because we're so immersed in the environment, but it's really easy to lose the self. um, going into an environment like that and just being in contact with a lot of people all the time, um, you just become part of the interconnected web. And I find that the clairsentience, we're not feeling it as much because there's movement and there's the flow of energy is in and out. So yeah, moving the body is huge with this. Like, do not stay stagnant, with this energy. But I'm really grateful because I know that a lot of people within that family line, that shared family line, have transcended this energy. And it's a huge energy to transcend. And I've watched them go through their journeys. They've watched me go through my journey. And I'm really proud of us. Like, I'm really proud of the family line for being able to do this, because there's a lot of things that I won't talk about on here, but there's a lot of things that we've had to transcend in general, regarding darker aspects, right? Where that energy can be used, right, as a kind of a self-sabotaging energy, or just get stuck, right, in lower aspects. And so previously, some of our ancestors stayed stuck in, like, you can go in the underworld and get stuck there and never come out, right? So some of our ancestors did go into the underworld and stay stuck there and actually start just thriving there, right? Um, and then follow more along the lines of like these kind of lost souls, but that end up doing harm to people. So I'm not going to go into all of that, but like, everyone is aware there's, within every family line, there's some psychopath somewhere. Like, don't think your family line is like pure all the way up. Like, we are going back millions of years, and like, there's been a lot of lessons and learning, but it's really up to that soul coming in to that family line that gets to choose where they're going to take the energy, right? Whether they're going to take it into a healing realm, or whether they're just going to let it consume them. So coming to this next part of what I wanted to share regarding that was coming into coming up against those that want to exploit that energy. So if you're someone who has, any sort of psychic gifts, you're going to be exploited by all the three-letter agencies, right, in society that are kind of just there and waiting to harness these energies, a lot of the times for the war machine, and, wanting to use them to do their spy work, wanting to use them to forecast different events happening within the collective or within the world. And and so when you come out and you start sharing, right, some of the things that you're forecasting, and they just kind of come at you, like, from different universities, like, that are doing experiments and trying to better understand the nature of reality. I've interacted with like Michigan University, MIT, CIA, like, you name it, they're going to come and exploit um, those gifts, or they're going to try to exploit them, right? And no one involved in all of this exploitation ever gets a paycheck. Like, you're not going to get paid, they're just going to come in, and it's an asymmetrical power situation where, they're going to use the means that they have to get to you and try to control, what you're producing. And so a lot of it is done through technology. And I've spoken about this previously before, but with everything going on with the programs and the algorithms running with regarding, it's not just about data collection, it's really about harnessing like the human soul, right, through AI and getting it to produce different things by poking at it in different ways. And so we're talking about the sensors, we're talking about these like really sophisticated algorithms that are running. And I'm not going to go into that too much because I went into that in the past, but if you have any questions on that, you can always send them in. But these programs are being run on general population, and they do fall into the category of MK Ultra, and they are basically most people aren't aware, but once you become aware, right, everything changes once you have an awareness, right, of what's out there. A lot of people just don't know what's out there, so they can't even relate what they're going through to what they are seeing happening, whatever responses they're having, right, to sensorial, psychological, they won't make the association. 'Cause, if you don't know that there's someone outside your house with a bulldozer, knocking it down and you can't see it, you look outside, you can't see the bulldozer, you're going to come up with all sorts of stories as to why the house is starting to, become dilapidated and get bulldozed down. But if you don't see the bulldozer, you're never going to know that it's the bulldozer, someone actually driving a bulldozer outside your house. So a lot of people just aren't aware. And so they can't even like bring those elements into their story. But the more aware you become of what's out there, and what is actually, seeking to exploit different things within these human gifts, then you can start to have a clearer understanding, right? A better overview of what you're experiencing. But when people are going through this, when they have been, targeted by whatever three-letter agency and through technology, you can see them on social media, like they will just start to kind of, go crazy and start posting lots, and a lot of the content that they're posting won't be similar to what they were posting previously. You could tell that their nervous system has been stimulated, and under any pressure, under any trauma, these gifts come out, right? So it's like someone getting hit by lightning, for example, like, it's going to bring the nervous system, it's just going to get this huge jolt, and it's going to bring everything to an extreme within, within that system. And so all the gifts get pushed to an extreme. So the more pressure that these agencies put on people, the more they can harness and harvest the gifts, right? That unique individual has. And so a lot of people aren't aware, but you can kind of see people go off, and I could spot it like a mile away now when people have been activated by artificial means, by these different institutions and agencies that are, doing experiments on the population. So that's why I don't personally use Facebook anymore. And there's no use in trying to explain this to people. I have in the past, but once you come into a certain amount of awareness, you're just kind of like too far ahead for people to really make any sense of what you're saying. It has to go step by step, learning one thing at a time to be able to connect to the next, and really getting slowly, increasing their capacity to understand what's going on. But if you try to, explain something going on that's really intricate and advanced regarding technology, and they're just kind of coming into an awareness of self and soul and unseen forces, they're not going to be able to really grasp the enormity, like, of what's happening. So you just kind of seem like, you kind of seem like a crazy person. So a lot of the work that I did, and coming into a lot of like a lot of the research I did and coming into a lot of information happened really quickly for me because I was put in a position where I had to in order to basically save my life. So I started learning like, warp speed, everything that was going on. And that sort of set me apart in terms of, my environment and the people that were around me because they weren't going into the information at the same rate I was, and then you learn what's out there. Uh, you learn about, all the direct energy weapons. You learn about crazy things like voice to skull. You learn about tons of things, and you can go and get their patents. They're all there. Patents are available. Everything is out there. So everything's transparent. It just really depends on where you want to look, what you want to see, right? And I say the more that you are aware of as many things as possible, then the better you are at making a good discernment about what it is that you're experiencing, right? If you don't know what's out there, your judgment, your discernment about what you're experiencing is going to be really limited to, your awareness of things. So, just take a sip of this. So basically, a lot of people have been a part of this. Like, this is not unique. I'm not special. Everyone has been a part of this, like, especially within, my generation. And the generation previous to us, the baby boomers, they're the ones actually, the people involved in that are, there's a greater percentage of people from the baby boomers that are actually actually participating in the, in different experiments happening. So they're the kind of like they're using asymmetrical power right against the younger generations. But there are people from generation, Z, that are participating in this as well, right? Because everything went technological. So to get back to my stream of thought before I went on that rampage, was describing how, these gifts are going to be, people are going to try to exploit them. They're going to try to exploit them, and they're going to try to harness them for free. So when I really became aware that I was able to tap into energies, right, foresee events, and all of a sudden it's like all these agencies just went, right, and they surrounded me. And what happens in that process is that you actually lose trust in your environment. You lose trust in your environment because you're being harassed. It's that simple. And you also try to mitigate that energy. And by doing that, you kind of end up sort of, going through a sort of disassociative process because you're having to protect yourself, and that's a means of protection. So a lot of the people that I interacted with who were involved in these 3-letter agencies were actually like, traumatized people themselves, and their gifts get exploited, and they go work for these agencies, and the training that they receive really disconnects them from their soul, right? So it becomes all about manipulation, right? That using that asymmetrical power to manipulate, and trying to cater narratives, right? Like, how easy is it, right? We want to determine how easy it is to shift the mind of a population from having one opinion to another, right? So it's a lot to do with that Loki energy. It's a lot to do with manipulating the human, and especially humans who aren't aware of themselves, right? And they don't understand how how their mind works. They can't really see that happening, right? So these people are trained to find out how to do that, right? So if you're aware of all of this stuff, then you are consciously battling, right, these agencies and these institutions that are constantly trying to curate narratives, and it's basically called propaganda, right? And get people to think a certain way, and get them to ignore, right, what they're sensing, and what they're understanding, what they're picking up on from like a really deep kind of core level, right? And instead to replace that with a narrative that's fed to them. And so um, a lot of these people involved in these agencies really truly believe that, they are helping society become wiser, right? They're helping society um, come into a place of, being able to think really logically and reason with things. And, a lot of them in smaller sectors are looking to, how to basically uh, curate the tone, right? So that people don't have as much conflict, but really it's in the conflict, right? And that dialogue where people can actually grow, right? So we want to have healthy conflict within any society. And of course, the extreme extremes, you know, will be harmful, right? So um, I can understand us a part of it, like a part of those, because there's many different agencies and institutions, but whenever we're sort of trying to control someone through an asymmetrical power, like with the bulldozer outside the house and you can't see it, it's invisible, um, that actually does more harm to the soul. And it actually creates more of that extremism within society, because people can feel and they can sense these bulldozers around them, but they can't, there's no one to point to. There's nothing unless you start doing the research, like you know, and so it actually creates a lot of tension within a society, and that tension has been rising over the course of the last, decade. And every day, more and more becomes transparent. Even though it is transparent, you can do research and you can go out there and you can find these things. Every day, things are coming out and, getting pushed really through some sort of, like the structures in society, whether it be court systems or, forced into the media, right, through legitimate journalism. Um, so there's a lot that is constantly coming forth, and there's less and less that people can hide, right? So there's less and less that can be hidden away. And for me, in my case, regarding, who I am and coming into individuation and coming into, you know, just wanting to be able to work with who I am and the gifts that I'm given, and want to help people, want to assist humanity from that place. It's like having to go through that corridor really taught me a lot about how these institutions can really mess with someone, and the dangers of these people thinking they're fighting the good fight, right? When really they have been separated from their soul through their training, right? To become, um, an operative or whatever. And having this sort of compassion for that, but really also knowing, like having really strong boundaries and seeing it for what it is. And so you can have compassion for something, but it doesn't mean that you're going to let it come near you, or affect you again, right? Because once you have that power of awareness, that's it. They're done. And so anything that is hiding, um, you know, anything that is hidden and that isn't in its authenticity, isn't in transparency, is going to keep on getting squeezed, right? And there's still opportunities for people to come back into soul alignment, but those opportunities become slimmer and slimmer, right, the older you get. And so for those that have really like sold themselves out to these agencies and institutions, you know, there's always an opportunity to come back, but you have to make that decision, right? You have to make that decision for yourself. And a lot of these people that I interacted with, you know, were saying one thing directly to me and doing another, um, which again, you know, doing one thing with the left hand and then, you know, another with the right. Um, that needs to come into balance, you know, if you're going to be on your soul's path. And all of these people, excuse me, and all these people, you know, involved in the Omega MK Ultra programming and these like, you know, existential crisis, everything to do with, you know, the apocalyptic narrative, are a lot of really smart individuals that want to do good for humanity, but have been themselves programmed, you know, with the Omega MK Ultra programming. So they still have to wake up to their own programming, right? To see what they've been a part of, right? And it comes from the indoctrination in the universities they went to, or the schools, or the groups that they became affiliated with, all those 3-letter agencies. They don't even know that they've been programming themselves. They think they're dealing with people who have, you know, that they're using technological means to curate, and manipulate and alter, but really they themselves have to heal from their own programming. And so there's all these different layers and levels of people waking up to their programming. And I'm really curious to see who is going to actually be able to transcend that for themselves. Because there's so many different layers and so many different programs within every strata of society, right? And there's a lot of really good people within every strata of society. And even within these 3-letter agencies, there's really good people that, you know, think that what they're doing is for the well-being of humanity. When in reality, they're just running a program, right? They're not actually in their authenticity. They're not actually really connected to soul. Like everything's up here and it's all about like the manipulation. And part of their cause is like, we're going to manipulate this group, you know, it's going to help them, it's going to help society. And, you know, they find all these reasons why. And maybe those people do need help, but you can't do that from an asymmetrical position of power. Like it is complete coercion, and, you know, it's against human rights. Like it is actually harming. Someone who is awakened to their soul feels that energy as not only coercion and manipulation, but actual harm. Like it physically harms people because it's tapping directly into their nervous system. It's tapping directly into the brain. And, you know, there's no way, once they become aware, there's no way for them to deny the harm that they're doing. So, you know, coming into that is also a hard awakening, for them. And so, so the exploitation of these gifts really led to, a serious mistrust, right, in technology. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with technology. I barely put out videos anymore just because the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous, right? Until we can get the right people behind the machines and writing the algorithms, it's just, you know, you're interfacing with a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. But again, like I said, if you try telling that to people that have done no research and just don't know, you know, they think they're thinking the thoughts that they're thinking when really, you know, they don't even think their own thoughts anymore, right? Everything's curated for them from behind the scenes, and what's presenting itself in their mind is not even coming from them. So until that changes, you know, I will use technology very carefully. And it's ubiquitous. It's a massive problem, especially for the generation, the millennials, and after, like, the new generation, I think it's called the alphas. Um, they're having to deal with it on a whole other level because they were born right into it, right? And that was the whole purpose, right? With the AI timeline, it's like if you're born right into it, your whole brain is hardwired. Already, you know, things have atrophied because from birth they're holding devices in their hand, you know, and it's human cognitive augmentation, you know, happens right from the get-go. And so they don't have anything to compare it to, right? And when that whole AI timeline started pushing itself in to our world, I felt it viscerally. I fought against it, you know, viscerally. Um, and I fought against these institutions and agencies. Like, I went up against them because I felt what was happening. And I was so pissed about, you know, that tearing that they were doing, like that tearing apart, you know, people's psyches and really trying to tear people apart from their souls. If you were awake during that time, that transition, and you saw what was going on, it was just like absolutely devastating, right? And again, a lot of people don't really understand what that means, but it's basically it was inserting different programs, right, to run in people's psyches. So it's like this disconnection, you know, from their soul, and then limiting that, and again enforcing more device use for cognitive augmentation. And then I'm not going to get into all the other stuff right now, but you know, it continues on. Like, there's practices in different places in the world where they've taken that to an extreme, and even on the level of you know, everything that we have in our bodies, right, that we have to fight against all these um basically artificial elements, you know, like the just look at the fact of like the artificial synthetic cells that they've created, right? And all of these behave very strangely, right? They're not connected to the natural grid. They're connected to an artificial realm, right? If you know, if I create a flower out of metal and out of all these different elements and then turn it into an art piece, it could be absolutely beautiful. You know, it could be stunning, but it's veins, right? It's not going to be connected to the earth. It's not going to be exchanging information with this natural grid, with the earth, with the elements. Like, that's not going to happen. There's going to be nothing, right? This beautiful flower that I created with these, you know, these artificial elements, whether, you know, plastic or whatever, it's not going to be connected in the same way a natural flower will, right? So you can't compare the two, but people just think that they're interchangeable, right? But they're not. Like, they're not interchangeable at all. And so you know, not only the human cognitive augmentation, but like the human augmentation, right? Inserting all these different things into the body that aren't natural just gets the energy to flow differently. And it actually starts evolving the human into a different species, right? This is what people need to understand. It's like, we don't want to become a different species. We are doing great. Like, we're, you know, humans are beautiful. Like, it's like taking, you know, anything that's so beautiful in nature and saying, well, we're going to change it. We're going to turn it into something else. Why? Everything's beautiful, right? So this is what humans are. There, a lot of the curated narratives are leading humans to um, kind of dislike themselves more and more and see themselves as a problem and see themselves as something that needs to change to be corrected. Like there's always healing and adjustments, that are going to be made naturally, every, within the lifespan of everything in the natural world, there's seasons, right? And that's that natural healing process. It's really like the seasons and the transformation that takes place during those seasons, including the birth and the death, right? Which are part of a greater cycle of seasons. And so that's fine, right? Yes, the healing is going to occur on that level, and there's going to be an evolution, there's going to be a transformation. But to think that controlling it, like taking something and then uprooting it, and then telling it that it's really not it's not good, it's not, it's not, it shouldn't be a part of this world, and that it needs to change, and then start pulling things out of it and then putting other things in it. It's like kind of reconstructed mishmash isn't going to make it better, right? Like that's part of the basically the curated narrative to make us think that we need to go to such extremes in order to heal or to correct things, when in reality, like healing is a natural process within us. We actually naturally heal really well from things when we're tapped into soul, and we can rejuvenate with the seasons. And so so it's a completely different approach, right? And so feeling everything that I felt, along with a lot of other people during that transition, was not pretty at all. And coming up against the people that really felt like, humanity is scum, and I can understand if you're living in a war-torn country where you're faced with war every day, that you can have those emotions. But for people that actually have so much to be grateful for, like there's just so much abundance, in the world in general, tapping into that stream of thinking is much better directed in terms of, the thoughts that it's going to produce and the solutions that it's going to come up with coming from that lens. And so I'm going to tie this up soon because I don't want it to be too long. But basically, I've done a lot of work with my family line. Other people in my family have done a tremendous amount of work. And I honestly believe that, you know, having to feel so much is no longer, like, once the healing work is done, it's no longer possible to experience such a setback from those gifts. And so I'm going to be coming forward with a lot more of the basically the information that I receive in dreams and that I receive just on a day-to-day level. And I'm going to be looking at how to share this and how to be able to provide people with like some sort of service related to this. I'm not so much into the tarot cards and, a lot of the tools of divination that other people use, but I definitely don't want that energy to be harnessed by the 3-letter agencies. And I want it to be used to better humanity. So I'm going to be finding different ways, and I have been slowly, and I recommend everybody, because a lot of it can just be channeled through creative means, and I know that that part of the family is extremely creative, and there's a lot to bring forth just in terms of, that creativity and that interconnection, and then what that leads to just brings in a lot of really interesting relationships and fun experiences for people to have, right? So yeah, so I'm going to be bringing some of that stuff forward. and I'm going to be doing it from a pretty isolated perspective. Like, I'm not really interested in, I've explored so many groups online, and that's how I actually ended up coming into all that information about different three-letter agencies. And, it'll be a story for another time, and I definitely will break, break out with some of that stuff in the future. But I want to keep it kind of fun for now, because I think that, um, focusing on that is, after going through everything that we've been through, is really where, the juices can flow in a healthy way, right? Because when those gifts are being pressed up against through, just like the three-letter agencies, right, trying to harness them and get you to give them information about different countries, different intel, or different groups that are just really highly competitive, and um, you know, s- kind of squeezing you to produce certain information. Like, this, it's really hard to find like a nice, comfortable place to bring your gifts forward and to exchange with others in a healthy way, where, you can actually create something, tools, in humanity that can help people, um, and that aren't trying to control them. Like, that has been a major theme. A lot of people, unfortunately, like, you can sense when people come in. It's funny because when you really need people, it seems like they're not there, right? But but then they come in and, under the guise of helping you, or wanting to assist, or being worried, but really, that's a form of control. That's totally a form of control and manipulation. And if you're working under a form of control and manipulation, you're falling under that first level, right? That leads to the psychopath, which is like sociopath, right? You can't treat people that way, no matter who you think you are. And so I've really moved away from energies, even if they think, well, I'm going to send this person clients, or, but they're coming at it from this like controlling perspective. Um, they're basically the same as the three-letter agencies. They're not any different, right? And it does fall under that first category of sociopathy. And then, it could really easily slip and slide down the scale to like the really, darkest end. And of course, those are all the trials that people go through. And, some people just de-evolve, right? If they say yes and they sell themselves, they sell their soul out at each and every level in order to gain power, money, wealth, fame, then, by the time they get there, they might get there, but they have nothing left. That's um, that's authentic, and that's really, really connected to soul and to the heart, and to, um, the right way of being in the world, to generate, proper tools for people to assist people. And so it's a hard lesson to learn, to not approach people with the idea of helping them, because, you're positioning yourself, I've written about this tons, you're positioning yourself in a position of authority over them, that is self-appointed, right? It has nothing to do with reality. And it's usually an avoidance tactic, right? These people are seeking to help themselves, and they're not sure how to get there. So they project it outwards, onto everybody else. And I'm done as well. Like, I'm done with the agencies and the institutions. I have really strong boundaries with them. And I also have really strong boundaries with these other people now. And the only way you can come at me, like if you're interacting on here on YouTube, and you want, the only way to come at me and come at, I recommend going, approaching anybody else. So the only way you can approach me is by approaching me authentically, and having an exchange where there's no sort of, power dynamics. There's no like, I want to help you, or I want to do this for you, and not being in your power. Like if you're in your power, you're going to approach someone authentically, and it's going to be like, hi, either I'm interested in your service, right? Or I have this I want to share. And that's it. There's no strings attached. So I'm, you know, another aspect of my family lineage, not the one that I've been speaking about, the Vala, which is, the prophetess that Odin used to consult, or would consult, to gain information. The other lineage that I have, um, we all have many, right? Because these families are coming together, and if the bloodline isn't kept within the same family, then you have a real mix. But there are always stronger genes that are expressed depending on your environment. Is the water vessel. And so a lot of my energy is, extremely emotional, and I feel a lot. So I don't really like, where I'm at right now with all of this is, I don't really care anymore, like, so much what people could think about me. It's more about, am I being authentic with myself? Am I being true to myself? Am I being true to my path? Right. And going through the level of targeting that I did, I got to see what was out there in the world. Right. And once you see what's out there in the world, that also gives you a better indication as to where you want to position yourself in order to help, right? And I'm not someone who is going to be stepping out and going up against, these agencies, these big agencies anymore. I did that when I had to do it for myself, for my children, because a lot of people out there that don't have kids and that just won't understand. There is a difference between people who have children and people who don't. Just as a woman, it changes your whole biology, and then your whole mindset is oriented to something not only about yourself, but really including these other human beings. So a lot of the protection and going up against these agencies was to protect the integrity of myself and my family. And so I won't be going up against these institutions anymore directly in the way that I did, but all of that information is still stored up here, right? Everything, all the information I gained, how things work, how things run, everything is within, my memory. And that memory is not going to get erased, right? Like they try to erase memories over and over and over again. No, once you transcend these different programs, like you regain your memories, and you're not living in the fear of like what you were experiencing then. It's not that type of memory, but you hold on to all the information that is necessary and pertinent to move forward in this, like, really holistic sense. So yeah, so I'm interested in doing, like, I do divination work, and I do a lot of counseling. I'm going to put out some videos. I came across some really interesting models for people that have dissociative disorder and people that have had extreme trauma in their childhood. And I'm not a licensed practitioner. I've just been doing this my whole life. This has been my life work, being the prophetess, being in the underworld, being Hela, being the healer. And so I'm constantly reading up on different models, and I came across this really great model that I then altered and kind of added to with my friend who was doing therapy, and received information from a therapist that she was involved with, and then I combined them both. And it's a really good way to look at the self and the psyche, and bring these disassociated parts back together, and how to identify them, and then how to transcend them. And so I'm doing work like that. If you want to book a session with me on that type of counseling, um, feel free, go to my website, inspiringplayfulevolutions.com. And I also do basically penetrating psychic intuitive insight for leaders. I've been working on a project for the last year, it's kind of coming to a head now and is wrapping up, and it's basically bringing this business, it was like business development, and bringing it to another level. Everything from branding to website to just coaching, right? Coaching motivationally, coaching the person to have some sort of organization, workflow, and really try to hit, their mark in terms of what they're trying to bring forward. I love doing that work. I love working with men, especially. I'm not as interested in working with women, although I get along really well with some women, but I'm still doing some healing work regarding women, connection with women. And so that doesn't come as easily for me. I feel a lot safer, around men in general. I don't, I can feel a person out. So if a man is looking for basically, anything sexually related, or just basically like a really controlling, manipulative energy, like, I'm not even going to talk to them. But if I feel like they're in a really good space, I love working with men, and working with women can be a lot more challenging for me, and I'm working on that. And there's certain women that I work really well with, but in general, the feminine energy is very chaotic, and yeah, the women are still going through a huge healing right now, myself included. And so there's still a lot of things that I think need to continue to heal within myself and within others for me to really feel comfortable and safe around women. And what else? And I also do the ancient astrology, which I love doing. I look at all the different systems. I'm really focused, more geared now on the sidereal, which is true sky astrology. I do look at the Western, and I have a little bit of there's some contradictory information, regarding how the signs were assigned based on the Hellenistic time period. And those planets are no longer in the sky at the same place. So everything's kind of skewed. And I feel like I've moved from that sort of seasonal approach to the more expanded approach with the sidereal. So I'm transitioning to sidereal, but I look at everything to really pick out, like I look at the Mayan astrology model. I look at gene keys, I look at human designs, and I just get a general, I'm like, whatever patterns are standing out, or like they confirm. If something gets confirmed like 5 times, then that's the information that I'm really going to bring forward. And that's the work that I've done with myself, with my family names. Having one of my family name streams being the water vessel, and then the other family name stream being Mars. When you look at my Western chart, I actually have Mars opposition Neptune. And so you have that fire and the water opposition, and I actually have it in my names, right? The fire and the water, different streams. So the warrior and the dreamer, and just that sensitive, really sensitive, watery nature, and then that really strong, impulsive nature. And so that opposition has been something I've been working with for most of my life, and it kind of trying to not get them to nullify themselves, because it's really easy to just kind of like, they almost like one will what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it's almost like just nullify each other, right? So anyway, so we have all these things that we can really confirm. And your blood type is huge. That was a huge thing for me. So I just, I help someone look at all the different information that can be, that's accessible to them. And I do that through the ancient systems of gnosis, gnosis being knowledge, self-knowledge. I'm going into Pluto again on my ascendant, connected to my north node. So it's part of my mission and my journey, and I'm going to keep on moving forward from here. If you'd like to book a session, please go ahead and click on my website. People send me messages. I can't always chat with people. That's the thing about having these channels. It's like in the boundaries, and you don't know who's out there. Sometimes you have the three-letter agencies trying to communicate with you, by pretending to, have a false fake Facebook profile, or just contacting you through your website. Like, this is happening ubiquitously across the board. Like, everybody has been having to deal with this. So we have to be careful, who we're interacting with. So I don't always interact with people, and I won't always respond to messages. But if someone's really serious, they're going to book a session with me. And so I put out this information so people can get to know me and get to know kind of what it is that I'm offering. And hopefully I'll hear from you, because there are tons of awesome, amazing people that are out there and that I want to connect with. So I keep on, putting the effort to put out videos every now and then, and really just share authentically what's going on with me. And if you relate to this and you want to connect, you're working on things for yourself, then please do. It would be awesome. So looking forward to sharing with you the chart that I did with my friend. And yeah, it was really helpful. I'm going to put together something. I might even put together something right after this, seeing as I have a bit of time right now, and share that with you. And hopefully that will help for the lunar eclipse today. And then on the 8th of April is the solar eclipse. So, all this transformation, it's good to have information and kind of get things flowing for when we get stuck. So I'm wishing everybody really great transformative time with all these energies, and I look forward to chatting with you in person when you book a session. If you do, if not, take care. All right.